thanks for joining me today for episode 18 of Business in the Bedroom, a bootstrapper's guide to doing it. I'm your host, producer Jemmy, providing practical advice for the newbie entrepreneur, and today I'm going to talk to you about networking's secret sauce. This episode is brought to you by Flintstone Media. Listen in and let's do this. In the last episode, episode 17, we talked about laying the groundwork to build a team. Well, finding those right people can come in a myriad of ways, one of them being through your network of connections. And there's been a recent development that I'm excited to share with you, and I will at the end of this episode. But this news I have inspired me to focus in on networking because it is just so key to overall business growth in so many ways, whether related to the kind of news I'm going to share or relating to finding the right people to build your team, whatever, opportunities, partnerships, all those things. So today we're going to come at the practice of networking from two different angles. First, I'll share with you the superpower of networking. Then I'll get into the secret sauce of networking as promised. And also I'll share a few other ingredients needed in the mix. Then at the end, I'll share the specific event in my life that led me to realize all of this and reveal, because it's tied to it, reveal my big announcement, because honestly, it couldn't have happened without networking. All right, so before we get into the secret sauce of networking, let's first talk about networking's superpower, why it is so important and amazing, and you need to do it, okay? This is a concept I've often shared with my podcasting clients who are looking to increase their growth in some way, shape, or form. And so I've used it now more presently when giving advice on Clubhouse too, or doing my 15-minute free consultations or whatever. But by the way, you can find me on Clubhouse. There is producer Jemmy, Jaime. But I've started to hear other people on Clubhouse begin to use it, even literally while I'm right there in the room with them, which is so funny. And they're using it to give advice to other people. So apparently it's a message that's spreading and makes me think it's really resonating with people. So of course, I had to share with you too. It's a concept that comes from religion, but the advice really isn't religious. So, okay, Jesus's message spread all across the world, not because he was the only one walking around and telling people about it. No, it worked because he had 12 disciples who believed and walked and spread that message with him and for him. So you need to find yourself some disciples for your brand, people who believe in your message and your mission as much as you do. For example, if you're building a metalworks business that employs veterans, right, then find organizations that do work to assist veterans. Reach out to the organizers and tell them about your business, set up a call with them to explore possible synergies. Like, you never really know what can come of that and what might create a really good relationship between your brand and their organization that gets them. That's a secret. That's the greatness that gets them talking to other people about your business. Okay. If you have a coaching business geared towards women, then reach out to female-focused entrepreneurship groups and see if you can make a presentation to that group or something like that. Like, not to pitch your coaching, okay, not to do that. You don't want to turn it into an infomercial. Instead, and you want to make sure this is clear when you reach out to the organizers, but you want to present something to the group that can add real value and learning lessons to the people that they're trying to serve. And doing that, if you can set that up, that will in turn translate into some really great leads for yourself as well. As another example, let's say you want to start a business around alternative therapies, right? Perhaps building a relationship with a local spa or a nutrition blogger could lead to, again, a project that you partner on, and that creates an incentive for them to begin telling everybody about your brand, okay? Create disciples based on your brand's mission. So that's it. That is the superpower of networking, okay? And why this whole conversation on this episode needs to happen. So if that message of finding your own disciples, if that resonates with you and you think that it can resonate with someone else trying to build a business in their bedroom, please share that concept with them too. You are now my disciple, right? And while you're at it, also go ahead and tell them about this whole show. So that'd be great too. Tell them where you heard it. Okay. Ready now to hear the secret sauce of networking? You've waited long enough, all of 4 minutes? I don't know. Yeah, are you ready to hear the secret sauce of networking? Are you leaned in? Ready for this? It's honestly, it's like nothing you have ever heard before. It is earth-shattering and groundbreaking. Are you ready for this? The secret sauce to networking is setting a goal for yourself. Crickets? Crickets? Yeah, that's it. It's that simple. It's not really that earth-shattering. It's really simple. No matter what form of networking you're about to do, setting a goal for yourself can really, really, really help you make the most of it. And you're going to understand why. I mean, I know you're probably thinking, okay, that's not really that big of a secret, Jemmy. I don't know. I'm not really getting value today in today's episode. Yes, I know. But also, exactly, right? Sometimes the best lessons are the most simple and obvious because the concept of it is something that genuinely works in so many aspects of our lives. But until we apply that concept to a particular problem, like networking, sometimes that truth isn't so obvious. So let's take a second to actually give a more of a concrete definition to the word networking, because networking can really mean so many different things. And it can mean any of these things to you that I'm about to list, or perhaps something that I'm not about to list that I didn't even think of that applies to you and your business. So networking can be attending conferences. It can be your social media engagement, one-on-one exploratory calls, like I was just mentioning before. It can be participating and joining up with meetup groups. It's the participation in sales calls. It's industry functions, alumni association functions, board meetings. I mean, it really can mean so many different things. Even PTA meetings, depending on what kind of business you do, PTA meetings can be a great networking opportunity. So yeah, setting a goal for yourself though can really, 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 really help you make the most out of whatever networking opportunity you find yourself in. And the goals can also look very different from space to space. But here are some examples to consider. Saying to yourself, for example, I'm going to make sure I initiate a conversation with at least 5 different people. I'm going to pass my business card to 50 different people. Or I'm going to find at least one person in this room that I really can share my story with because I think it's going to resonate with them. Maybe it could be, I'm going to introduce myself to at least one person behind every single booth at this conference. Or one thing this is one that I've done for myself in a few different ways, a few different variations, but it's something like, I won't leave until I have 3 meetings lined up for next week. Another one would be, I'm going to keep speaking with people until I meet at least 3 people tonight who offer to refer me and my business to one of their clients. That's a tougher one, right? Because it's layered. It's going to keep you talking to all kinds of people until 3 people volunteer to refer you and your business. Seriously, there's so many different kinds of goals that you can set for yourself as you enter into a networking opportunity. And yes, the idea sounds so simple, and truthfully, it really, really is. But what is so powerful is the effect it has, at least as long as you actually stick to the goal and you don't quit before you've accomplished it, right? If you stick to it, and you wait until you reach that goal, it can have an amazing effect on your networking, pretty much no matter what that goal is. Because first and foremost, the goal can directly impact your sales and business growth, right? That's kind of like a duh. If you are setting up sales meetings or what have you, then that's an impact directly onto your sales growth and your business growth. But what the goal is really doing is forcing your ass to stay there, stay in that space, stay in that networking opportunity until you accomplish that goal. It's keeping your ass there. See, if you're anything like me, then there is a voice in your head constantly naysaying the crap out of you. Yes, it's true. I may come across uber confident, but No. So if you go to a conference, for example, right, I've had to force myself to set a goal to keep myself from dipping out. There'd be that voice in my head saying, oh no, no one here even knows what a podcast is. Like when I was first starting out, no one knew what a podcast is. And half my conversations were, well, a podcast is this. And you're trying to convince people that podcasting's cool, really? And then you're going to try to convince them to be part of it somehow? What, girl, just go home. That's what that naysaying voice kept telling me. But no, I wasn't allowed to leave and go home until I forced myself to give out X number of business cards or to shake X number of hands, which I literally just got the ickies. It sounds super icky. Thinking about shaking people's hands sounds super icky now in the age of COVID, but whatever. You know what I mean? Having that goal, it forced me to stay and to keep introducing myself and allowing the goal of the networking opportunity itself that I was participating in to actually have a chance to happen, right? The actual networking now had a chance to happen because I wasn't allowed to be a wallflower or to leave. So yes, it seems so simple because it is. I'm not sharing anything earth shattering, okay? CNN isn't going to be calling me to shed light unto the world with this stuff. But sometimes the simple things are what take the least amount of time to really appreciate the impact of and how that impact occurs. So yeah, goal setting is the secret sauce of networking. It feels like that should be a product you find in the grocery store. That's the tagline. Goal setting is the secret sauce of networking. But okay, there are a few other ingredients needed in the mix of this sauce that are also worth mentioning. Okay, so number one, always be ready. I mean, you do want to consciously be putting yourself in the right spaces to meet the right people. You do want to be intentional and active and seeking those opportunities out. But also, just try to adopt a mindset of always being ready to pitch yourself, to sell yourself. I've had plenty of opportunities happen when I least expected it. I mean, Toni Braxton, I don't know if you know this story, but if you don't, look it up. I'll put a link in the show notes. Toni Braxton got discovered while singing to herself at a gas station. True story. So you never know when that opportunity is going to happen. So always be ready. Okay, number two, be unafraid, which is so hard sometimes, right? But like fake it till you make it, okay? Be unafraid and start talking. Open up your mouth, reach your hand out. I know, icky COVID, you know what I mean? Figuratively. Walk up to someone and approach people, make contact, be unafraid, fake it till you make it. And three, sometimes an opportunity to network comes along and you're not really sure if you can immediately identify the value of it. But if you have the time and you've also tended to your self-care, just go and enter into that space with open intention, meaning being open to the possibilities. Because when you can't create a specific plan, being open is better than just not participating at all, right? And I think I'm on number 4, having business cards or some other means of quickly exchanging information that includes your website or link to some other portfolio of your work. And that provides a means of quickly connecting to continue the conversation after you've met them. Having that with you is also really great. So, all right. We have covered the secret sauce. Well, no, first of all, we covered the superpower. Then we covered the secret sauce. Then we went into some extra ingredients. So now we have arrived at my final thought. All right. I have yet to meet someone who doesn't have some sort of insecurity when it comes to networking. It could be meeting new people. It could be that if it's a paid event, how to afford it. Whether or not your business and brand are really ready for these conversations. It could be, how do you best present yourself? Or what to bring, what to wear, how much to drink, like whatever, right? So as a final thought, I want to just encourage you to hone in on whatever your networking insecurity is and work through it piece by piece. Like that old adage says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. right? So for example, if your Achilles heel is speaking, try apps like Clubhouse. I swear they aren't sponsoring this podcast. Okay, even though it probably sounds at this point like they are. They're not sponsoring this podcast, but if they'd ever like to, please hit me up, Clubhouse people, whatever. Or try being a guest on a few podcasts to get into the groove of speaking, of sharing your story, of talking about your business and what you offer, of sharing your value, of communicating it. That could be a really great practice for you too. Or, just practice to your friends. Say, hey, can I pretend you're so-and-so and you're an angel investor? Can I pretend to pitch to you? Whatever, right? Maybe finding the time to network is the problem for you. Well, then find means of networking that are virtual and happen in small doses, like online meetups or business groups on Facebook or LinkedIn that do weekly live check-ins for an hour or so, something like that. So there are ways to find your insecurities. So look within. Look within thyself, find your insecurities, and then think about ways that you can kind of chip away at it little bit by little bit, okay? Because networking is so important. You don't want to get in your own way with it. So yeah. My insecurity has always been going up and initiating conversation with people, which getting into podcasting, honestly, in and of itself has really, really, really helped me to do. Because if I wanted guests on, well, I had to actually ask them. They didn't just magically appear. Okay. So I had to initiate some sort of contact. But it was something I had to force myself to do. It was an insecurity of mine. But doing my first podcast itself wasn't what made me realize the impact of setting a goal, that secret sauce of networking, that it can be so direct and made in such concrete terms. What really crystallized that impact for me, I actually figured that out a little while later and completely by accident. So I was about a year and a half or so into my podcasting, and I was getting ready to go to my first podcast conference, PodFest 2017 in Orlando, Florida. And at the time, I was hosting my show, Curve the Cube, which is about asking people how they did what they love for a living. How do you make it happen? Whether they had figured it out already or in the trenches of figuring it out. And so what I thought I would do while I'm at this podcasting conference, I had a jillion podcasters at the ready, people who love to talk. At first I thought, why don't I ask one or two, find one or two to interview for the show? And then I thought, wait a minute. Why don't I ask a whole bunch? And there's actually this type of interview style called Vox Pop. And Vox Pop means, if you've ever seen a late night show and, they have the man on the street and they go up to random people and they ask the same question to each person and just see what their answers are, right? And it's really funny. That's Vox Pop interviewing style. So when you're asking the same question to multiple people for really short answers and you move quickly. So I decided that's what I was going to do. I was going to interview a bunch of podcasters, just ask them, why do you love podcasting, and see what they said, and have 3, 4, 5-minute little interviews with them. And then I was going to string them all together for an episode and really share my experience of going to this conference. So my friend Teresa, what up, Teresa? You heard about her earlier when I was talking about public speaking. She actually came with me. We were road trip buddies and hotel room buddies. And we did some recording on the way there. That was fun to really capture the moment. But the point is that what I did was I went around and I asked all these different podcasters. I'm not even sure off the top of my head how many were recorded, maybe 12 to 15. It was a lot. And I asked all these different podcasters why they love podcasting, and I got to interview them. Now, here's the thing. This is why I'm saying I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I was accidentally networking because I was meeting a whole bunch of people in my industry, and not only meeting them within that industry, but also just by nature of what I do and what I was doing, got to meet them within the context of practicing the trade, which is really cool, by interviewing them for a podcast. So I was meeting all these different people and just really networking, and it was a lot of fun. And then I knew they were all going to be captured into this one show. And I mean, this was the most brilliant move that I accidentally made ever. Ever. Okay. Well, I think it was the last night of PodFest, they had their awards ceremony. And these two gentlemen, Glenn and Gabe, received their awards back to back. Gabe first, Glenn right after. And Glenn was he was like the man, tall cowboy hat wearing guy. He's often the keynote speaker. He was like the guy that anytime he saw a crowd, he was in the middle of it. Wanted to talk to Glenn. And Gabe got an award because of this Pay It Forward program, which you'll hear about in a future episode, that it was just an inspiring thing. So they got these awards. So they come off stage, and me not being shy or forcing myself not to be shy, however I remember it, walked right up to them, these two biggest pillars in the room, and said, "Hey, can I interview you real quick?" So we went outside. I interviewed them together for this episode, and it was like 5 minutes that changed my life. Point blank, period. Because at the end of that conversation, and I've never been more upset with myself for turning off the recorder. But at the end of the conversation, I clicked the recorder off, and then they started talking with each other about how great I was. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what Twilight Zone episode did I just walk into? This amazing. And so, but what happened is, because I had a reason, I created a reason to speak with them that they wanted to participate in, that they were willing to then participate in. We spoke to each other. And then they got to hear my story and learn about me, and I got to know them. We exchanged cards. Glenn ended up offering to mentor me. Fast forward maybe 3 more months, I ended up being hired. Yes, I said hired by the Horse Radio Network as their production coordinator. Fast forward another year, get promoted to production manager. And I mean, just my life has never been the same. Glenn ended up helping me big time when Florida Podcast Network, which I own, was getting off the ground, and helping me with the flagship show, Finding Florida. And he was my travel companion and co-host on all those adventures all over the state. Seriously, I do a trapeze class, guys. I do a trapeze class on that show, and swim with manatees and all kinds of other great things. Highlight, all kinds of stuff. Anyway. This isn't about Finding Flora. I digress. So my point is that going to that conference and setting a goal for myself of meeting all these people, and that I knew I wanted to create an episode out of this. So I had a goal set, and I executed it, and I didn't allow myself to stop meeting people until I felt satisfied at the number of interviews I had collected, until I felt like the goal had been completed, right? But what it did was it allowed me to meet all these people, and it set into motion so many amazing, wonderful things for me, for my business. I can't even begin to say enough. I just can't even begin to say enough. So I actually will include a link to show notes to that episode so you can hear the magic happen in real time. It's absolutely fascinating, but please forgive the sound quality because I was still learning. But here's what else happened, right? That also established, because I got to meet so many people at this conference, the best independent podcast conference around, I got to really get to know them. And over the years, they've now become like another family to me. They have helped me grow my business in ways that I can't even begin to describe, ways that I couldn't have begun to imagine before I set this goal, right? You can't tell where it's going to lead you. But oh my gosh, like it's led me to so many speaking opportunities on their stages, in their panels, even being a keynote speaker for them on the big stage. I got to win their 2020 Podfest High Achiever Award. It's hanging up in my studio, right? But my big announcement for today that I teased up at the very beginning, I told you it had to do with this, right? So this is the story. Okay, and I'm about to tell you the big announcement. Drum roll, please. Glenn the Geek from Horse Radio Network, the aforementioned Glenn, and I get to co-host an upcoming podcast from Podfest. Yes, that's right. So it's a Podfest branded show that I will be co-hosting with Glenn. So, eek. Yay. I mean, my goodness, don't worry. Nothing's happening to the show. The show will live on forever. I'm excited, but to also now add in that I'm going to be hosting Podfest podcast. I can't even believe it. So as soon as I have a link for whenever that is a thing, I will be sure to share it with you. But none of it would have happened, including this, this latest big, huge, massive opportunity. None of that would have happened if I hadn't created a goal for myself when I got there, when I got to my first Podfest in 2017 and networked the shit out of it, okay? By setting a goal for myself and not stopping until I hit that goal. And actually, the final person, after everything with the events wrapped up, after the final balloons fell from the ceiling or confetti or however they ended the night, the final person that I interviewed for that episode was Chris Kremitzos, the founder of Podfest himself, who is now owning this podcast that I'm going to be co-hosting. It has been incredible, and none of it would have happened if I hadn't set that goal and I didn't even know that that was what I was going to do for myself. But what an amazing, amazing thing. And it wouldn't have happened without my attendance at that very first Podfest. And actually, I'm going to share in a future episode an even bigger piece of this story that really was what made my attendance at that Podfest that year even possible in the first place. It's a piece of the story that still really sends chills down my spine, and I can't wait to share it with you again on a future episode. But yeah, I completely figured this out by accident, that if you set a goal for yourself at a networking event, it can really, really make the impact of that networking event so much more. It was an accident because I set a goal for myself, yet having no idea the impact it would truly make. But now you can go forth from here and implement this networking secret sauce on purpose. Thanks as always for tuning in. I hope you're having a lot of fun building your business from your bedroom or whatever that you're doing. So I hope to hear from you someday. You can always go to bizinthebedroom.com. That's BIZ inthebedroom.com and leave me a message. There's a nice shiny red button there. All you have to do is hit it. You can record your message and I'll be able to hear it and maybe even play it right here on the show, answer a question for you, what have you. And I don't want to forget to also mention here, once again, I know Clubhouse, but the club, the Dreamers Become Doers Club on Clubhouse is growing in spades. So if you're not yet on Clubhouse, it's still invitation only. So if you need an invitation, just email me, Jaime, Jaime @flintstonemedia.com, and I will send you an invitation to get into Clubhouse so you can join Dreamers Become Doers right there. And if you're not a member there yet and you're on Clubhouse, what are you doing? You need to join, because we have a lot of really fun rooms that are inspiring. The connections that I have seen become made in those rooms are just phenomenal. So please join into Clubhouse at the Dreamers Become Doers Club. And with that, I will say, remember to hit it hard, keep the lights on.